Welcome to Recovering Out Loud podcast with your hosts Anthony and Caleb. The opinions expressed here are those of the individuals and not of any organization. Please help support the show by donating in the link. Enjoy the show. Look at this picture.
What?
I cut myself out. I'm drinking out of the Grey Cup. What a life. I was miserable inside here. That's the Grey Cup. For those who don't know, it's the Canadian version of the NFL
Yeah, the Grey
trophy.
Cup. What is there, 7 teams in the league?
Yeah, there's a bunch
Six.
there was a bunch of guys there, and I asked them, and I was drinking beer out of it like a dummy. And then I went to a soccer game after, and then I went to a bar after for sure.
Are we rolling or what?
Yeah, let's get going. I just don't know what to show.
Honestly, bro, just
Maybe I'll unplug it.
turn the TV off.
All right.
Yo, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for
Yeah,
all the love. and
everybody
love.
that left comments and experiences, thank you. Like I said, we're doing this for us to stay sober, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like if I'm being honest, we're doing it for us. I'm doing it for me, because I need this shit, right? Like, but at the same time, the bonus of all this is that it hopefully helps one person, right?
Yeah.
So, let's go from there. And
Yeah, today you guys are gonna hear my boy Anthony's story. You guys listened to me last time, and before I get into it, I want to say that small town that I'm from, I probably had like 30 people message me personally, man, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, your video was, I can't believe how like good you sounded, and like how much you changed," and like it was just like when you just said it, we do this for us, man. Like it really, I don't know, that meant so much to me.
yeah,
I had people reach out to me that were like, I haven't talked to in years. My parents, friends, just people I never thought I'd hear from. Right? It just goes to show like
people are thinking of you, right?
So yeah, I just wanted to say like I tried to answer every single message I got, and I think I did. But like I just want you guys to like know that I appreciate that
Yeah,
so much.
thanks. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And you think people don't realize that
Yeah.
you think you're only hurting yourself when you're in an addiction, active addiction, drinking and drugging, and you think people don't you're not hurting anyone, but we're like a tornado roaring through the house of families.
Yeah.
So shout out to all the families that are dealing with addicts and alcoholics. We
Yeah.
know it's hard.
You guys are the real MVP, man.
Yeah, I mean, my mom now, she goes to support groups still to try and help other people because I put her through hell, man.
Yeah.
And I've made some amends there, but I try to live my life better every day and make amends that way, living amends as we call it, right? Like just try to be a better person, try to help someone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't want to tell a big drunk log, so
Listen, man, I want to hear your story, bro. 'Cause,
yeah.
this guy's such a good dude. I met him in treatment, like we said in the last video, and this guy's story is pretty insane, man. I know it. I've heard it a lot, and like I want you guys to like get to know Anthony like I know him. So
Thanks, man. Yeah.
let these guys know what's up, man.
Yeah, so I came into recovery in 2015, so about 10 years ago. I was living at my parents' house, and I remember, oh man, I was a shell of a human, man. Like, honestly, I felt like a robot walking around. It was so loud in my head. And this is all I've realized in retrospect, like after the fact. I never knew it at the time that I was struggling and what I was going through. I didn't know how to reach out for help. I didn't know about any support, right?
Yeah.
So my parents, they first hooked me up with a psychiatrist, right? This guy can't stop drinking, he can't stop using. I remember I said this in the last podcast, but I told my dad I wasn't having fun anymore, right?
So
And
wait,
he-
hold on. So you
yeah.
were like, this is before your parents like sent you to treatment, and then they got you like a psychiatrist.
Yeah, it started with the psychiatrist,
Okay,
right? Because
okay.
we didn't know about treatment
Yeah.
at that
And they're
point.
just like
They had
know
no
the
idea,
answer,
right? And so my mom is like an expert in this now because she's been through it and she's stuck with me and she's a
Yeah.
ride or die lady. I love her to death, and my dad too. I love them both. I'm grateful. I know everyone doesn't have that
Yeah.
support, and so if you do, cherish it, right?
Sure.
Just like be grateful. I try to be grateful. And I was at my parents last night for dinner and watched the Leaf game, and let me tell you, like my dad used to look at me when I would walk in the room, and he had that look on his face at like, what are you gonna do today? How are you gonna screw me over today? How are you gonna steal? What are you up to? Right? He had that like questionable look. He was always walking on eggshells, right?
Yeah.
And today I can say that that's not the case anymore. My dad gives me a hug when he sees me, and we spend a lot of time together, and it's a beautiful thing, right? But it's because I've reached out for help. I've reached out and worked a certain program and support groups, and my life is not the same as it was, right? So
Yeah.
I was at the psychiatrist, and I'll never forget this. She had the DSM-5, that book that's like, it says, I'm not a friggin' scientist or a doctor. I'm gonna screw this up, but it has like all the diseases listed of diseases and substance abuse disorder. She opened the page to that because she asked me a bunch of questions. How much weed do you smoke? How much drinks do you have? Right? And I was answering all of them pretty honestly. She just looked at me and without like any reservation at all. She's like, "You're addicted to marijuana. You're addicted to cigarettes. You're an addict." And I remember hearing that, and I was in such denial. I got pissed off. Obviously, that's my first reaction,
Yeah.
right? Gaslight somebody, make them feel like they're stupid.
Is this your first ever like interaction with someone telling you?
Professional help, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
any professional help at all. And so I walked out of there. I remember, oh man, I remember. I'm gonna get emotional and getting goosebumps, but I remember my mom came in with me, and she was like wanted to come in the room, and I was over 18, and I was like, no, get out of here, right? Because I didn't want to tell the truth,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And my mom was just like so stressed, man, so stressed out. And so after that, she recommended, I think she recommended a sober coach or something. So we went to go see a sober coach, and I'll never forget this. This lady was like, she helped me a little bit, but she was more focusing on like getting active and going to the gym. So my parents got me a gym membership. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna stop because I remember just feeling like totally like a slave to drugs and alcohol. I had no choice in the
Yeah.
matter. Once I took one, I didn't know what was going to happen
Yeah.
next, right? And I would come home. My mom didn't sleep for so long. Yeah, you talked about that last time, but um, I remember I would come home, the door would be locked. Same thing, like 6 in the morning. Some days I wouldn't show up. I'd be gone for 2 days. I remember one time
And
I went to
how old were you when this
yeah,
happened?
this is like 20,
20. Okay.
21.
Okay.
It started getting really bad at 21. I went to university. I was smoking weed every day, and I didn't go to class, right? I didn't fill my obligations. I didn't show up to life at
Yeah.
all, right?
Yep.
And so I went to a party one time, and I remember leaving the party in the morning, like drinking it out of the bottle, not getting drunk because I was so high on coke and whatever. And someone stole my shoe, like one shoe.
At the
So
party?
yeah, I remember going home, and it was like 12 o'clock. I'm laughing now. My mom, I put my parents through such hell. Sorry, I love you guys. But I remember showing up at like 3 in the afternoon with one shoe, just like walking into the house, just like so,
3 in the afternoon.
yeah, just so
That's
like
crazy.
so out of it and so strung out, and it was terrible, right? I hated myself at that time. I didn't even know what self-esteem was or
Yeah.
anything. But yeah, so then sober coach, and um, then my parents got hooked up with an organization this was what saved my life. And I'll never forget this guy, Dave. I love this guy to death, man. He was a counselor at the thing I was going to. And I remember him telling me all these stories about young kids that were dying. And I just remember like not being affected by it at all. I was like, that's not me. I'm not that bad yet. I'm
Yeah.
not, you know what I mean? I didn't, this kid crashed his car. I didn't do any of that stuff, right? And so at some point, man, and hopefully this helps any parents dealing with children or loved ones in addiction. My parents were taught by that organization, that counselor, to cut me off. They were enabling me by giving me a place to stay. It sounds
Yeah.
horrible,
It does, but
but that's the only thing that worked for
yeah.
me and my family.
Yeah.
My parents had to kick me out. They had to cut me off. I lived in my car for 2 weeks, and that's what brought me to my emotional bottom. I remember I was sleeping on somebody's couch, and I had nowhere to go. I just wanted to shower, man. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to go home and shower. My parents gave me an ultimatum. You go to treatment or you don't come home. Right? And I tried. I was brushing my teeth in the office that I worked at, right? Like I was barely showing up to work. I wasn't sleeping. And finally I was like, man, I'm done. Like I'm done. I'll go to treatment. I put my hands up.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
threw the white flag.
Yeah.
I'll go to treatment. And I went to a beautiful treatment center in Minnesota. Um,
In
and some
Minnesota, in the
in the
United
United
States.
States,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
in Minneapolis, something clicked over there, man. And I'll never forget. Like I remember seeing guys like you that were just happy, like they had been there for 60 days, and I came in. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was
This is your first
crying.
time going to treatment.
Yeah, first time in treatment. I was crying. I was 23 years old,
Yeah, yeah.
and I was broken, completely broken. And I just remember seeing kids walking around happy, and they were cool. Like they were like cool guys that I would hang out with.
Yeah.
And I remember just thinking to myself, like, I want that. I want what that guy has, right? And so I did I did 30 days in there, and they recommended I did another 30. And I was like, man, I don't know. I don't want to do this. And I'll never forget this. One of my friends, shout out to Sam. This guy saved my life. He just told me, it was like, you and I. He's like, dude, just stay. We'll have fun. We'll go to meetings. Like, it'll be a good time. We'll live in a sober house after. And I did it. I just said, you know what? Again, I threw up my hands. I'm going to trust these people that are smarter than me, that are giving me advice. I'm going to, dive into this hope. There was hope in the treatment center that there was another way to live without alcohol and drugs, right? And so I did it. I listened to what they told me to do, and at some point, man, I just became happy. Like, my problems started to get smaller and smaller, and I started to I started to cut a guy's lawn. I was working at a sober house after. I was mowing this guy's lawn. He's paying me cash because I couldn't work legally in the States, right? Um, and so I don't know. I was happy to like have obligations and
Yeah.
do life and show up, and
Yeah.
I was taking the bus, right? And like for me, that was tough because I never took the bus in my life. I'm privileged, right? I always had a ride or somebody picking me up, and so I'm very thankful for that. Um, but yeah, man, something clicked in that treatment center. I came home. I stayed at a sober house in Toronto, actually this one that we're at now, 10 years ago. And there's a good dude that owns the house. I love him to death. He saved my life again. All these people were like, parts of my story that helped me
Yeah.
get to where I am. I just showed up. That's all I did. I
Yeah.
just threw up my hands. I listened and I showed up. And again, I connected with the people in the sober house. I went to recovery. I worked on it. And I stayed sober for 7 years, man. Like
7 years.
7 years.
Like, what was that 7 years like,
Oh,
bro? 'Cause,
dude,
like,
I'm getting goosebumps again just thinking about it.
I'm
Like
getting goosebumps just listening to your story again. I've heard it so many times, but it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
my life was amazing, and it is today again. But um,
7 years.
just opportunities started popping up in my life that I couldn't even imagine. Promotion at work, people wanted to hang out with me. Like I was going to help new guys in recovery, right? And things were just amazing, right? So at some point in those 7 years, I met the love of my life. That was another opportunity that was presented to me. My wife today, right? And
Who's an amazing
she's a
woman, man.
saint, bro. Like I love her to death. I'm so fucking grateful for that woman. She stuck by me, in my lowest times, loved me when I couldn't love myself, and
Yeah.
she still does today. I called her today. I was having a rough day just now. And you helped me too. I talked to somebody, man. That was the most important thing. I was sitting in my room, in my head. I feel like my addiction is like, I heard this from somebody else one time, but it's so true. It's like having seven garbage cans and six lids. You're always trying to cover the garbage cans, but there's always one that's coming up. And what I mean by that is like my addiction tries to like get at me
Yeah.
through different methods,
Yeah.
and it comes out in gambling. It comes out in buying stuff.
Yeah.
It comes out in doing performance enhancing drugs, which are a part of my story,
Yeah.
right? Like just things to make me feel better
Yeah. Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
And it's like it's always tricking me to do these things. So I'm in my room just now, an hour ago, and the first thought in my head, and this is because I've worked a program, is go to a meeting. Shut up and go to a meeting. Go to a recovery group, right? And so I did that, and I showed up. I went to a treatment center just now, and I forced myself to talk to a new guy, right? And I just asked him how he was doing, and I would stop thinking about myself. It was like it's like magic, man. Like I stopped thinking about myself. I go and sit down in the meeting. The guy up there has 30 years, and he starts talking about getting through hard times in recovery,
Yeah.
right? Just pushing through, relying on a power greater than myself that I call God today. Just trusting that it's going to work out if I don't pick up drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Just getting through, grinding sometimes. I'm like gripping the steering wheel, like, oh,
Yeah. This guy actually, man, I think it was you who said this to me. This was a while ago. We were just shooting the shit one day on the couch, and you're like, man, some days, like in recovery, some days, bro, on those bad days, you just gotta grip that steering wheel.
Oh, man.
You just gotta get to 10 o'clock at
Just
night.
get to bed. Like,
Get to
just
bed,
get through
right?
the
And then
day,
the
one
next
day at
day,
a time.
the next day starts, right? I remember you saying that to me, man.
Every
It's
day
so
has
true.
an end, right? Like every day has an end, and you might not feel better tomorrow, but you'll feel different.
You'll feel different.
You'll feel
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
and that's hope enough for me to
Yeah.
get through.
Yeah.
So I didn't pick up today, and I'm grateful for that, right? I'm grateful
got-
for the people that helped me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
So you got 7 years, man.
7 years of like beautiful living, man. Like family came back. My sister and I got really close. I've met the love of my life, and just it was like easy, right? So don't get me wrong. There's a lot of hard days
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that, right? And there's a lot of days where I wanted to buy, and I bought shoes. I like it came out in different ways. I didn't get back into gambling, thank God, yet. I always say yet. But my addiction comes out in different ways, right? And I have to watch myself. I have to be a good person today because the opportunities that my higher power presents to me will show up if I just don't pick up and try to do the next right thing, right? So
What surprises me, like what I'm really interested to know about your story, man, is because like I know your wife, I know your family, I know you, I know. Well, you told me a lot about what happened in those 7 years, right? Like you were having lots of success, going on these beautiful trips with your family. It's like you were living a good, happy life, right?
yeah,
And like what I want to know, and I want everyone else to know, because like for me, man, like that doesn't not make any sense because it makes sense to me because I've been in your shoes, but like what made you go back
mm,
to that life, right? Because like I know you went back and it wasn't a very good it wasn't a very good time for you, you
yeah.
know.
You
The
mean
hurt,
relapse, right?
you
Like,
know, yeah. I
yeah,
just want to know like what happened to get to the relapse. You know what
yeah.
I mean? Because
Yeah. So I know exactly what happened now. Again, life is lived forward and understood in reverse, I've been taught, right? I understand now that I had a friend, a buddy of mine that I don't talk to today. We're just kind of faded away, right?
yeah,
He's still out there, I think. And we're sitting in my condo. That's another thing. I was able to buy a house in recovery.
yeah,
Like, what?
yeah,
That was never even a goal of mine, but I was able to save money and buy a house, right? And so I'm sitting in my condo one day, and this guy starts talking to me about these steroids that he's taking, right? And I'm a big fitness guy. I love
yeah.
working out. Bro, something inside of me just like a fire was lit inside of me when he started. I was like, oh, I can get into that. It's not mood altering. I immediately, the addict brain
Yeah.
just started like justifying, rationalizing. I'm like, I'm gonna get big. I'm gonna look. And it was all vanity, right? I'm gonna look good. I'm gonna be strong, right?
Yeah.
So I just dove headfirst into that the whole time, not telling anybody that I was doing that, right? I wasn't telling anyone. I
Your
wasn't
wife
telling my
had no idea you were
sponsor.
doing it.
No, so I managed to get a prescription for a certain performance enhancing drug that I justified. I basically faked my test to show that I had low numbers in my blood test.
Just a quick question that
Yeah.
I've actually never asked you this before, but like when, because like I see pictures of you before, and like you got bigger. Did anyone that started asking
Oh
questions?
yeah, man. Everyone's like, dude, you're on roids for sure. And I kept denying it, right? It's man, you change like that, right? Like
Yeah,
my neck got like bigger, right? And I
yeah,
was like always bloated and
yeah,
it was
yeah.
terrible, right? I'm happy
Not to
today.
make a joke out of
No,
it,
no,
but
it's
I
true
was
though,
just
man.
asking
People
questions.
notice. Like,
Yeah,
and again, you'd think that people don't notice in your life, right? You'd think that people don't notice, but they notice. And I just kept denying it. And that was, that's a good question you asked because that hurt my self-esteem even
oh, for
more,
sure, for
right? I
sure.
was like, man, oh, like, do I not look good? Do I need to
Yeah,
do more? Do I need to stop?
yeah,
Like, I was in my head
yeah,
and I wasn't telling anyone. So that went on for like a year. And then I remember I was buying my stuff online one day and it was all online. And I remember seeing Adderall. And I was like, I'm never going to do that. I remember saying that to myself. I'm like, I'm not, that I can't do. I'm not going to do that. Then one day, something just happened and I was like, you know what? I need to fix my ADHD. This is a problem. I'm going to perform better at work. All these rationalizations, my addict brain just tell me to go.
it's not crack, you
Yeah,
know.
it's not Coke, it's not crack. Yeah, I dove headfirst. I'm not drinking. It's not mood altering, right? Even though it is, but
Yeah,
I was telling myself. So again, manipulated a prescription, but I started buying them online before that because I needed to fix what this hole in my head,
yeah,
right? Going to meeting, like going to things, going to my recovery, working my program, and not telling anyone this like 10%, right? I remember a counselor in my second treatment center was like, um, I told him, I was like, man, I tell the truth like 90% of the time, but I don't tell like, there's like 10%. And he looks at me and he goes, if you're a bank robber and you only rob banks 10% of the time, you're still a fucking bank robber, dude. Right. And I was like, man, that hit me. I was like,
yeah,
oh man, I gotta be more honest about
yeah.
everything. And that's what I'm trying to do today. Right.
Even like I'll get the feeling sometimes like I'll be honest, and then like I'll be like I'm fucking not lying anymore,
Yeah.
and then I'll tell one lie,
That's so true.
one lie, and then it hits me. I'm like, fuck,
One little
bro.
stupid thing too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
It's so, and then like, so I was taught to always go back and be
that's
like,
the
you know
line.
what? I lied there. I'm sorry. And you
Yeah,
laugh about it. You're like,
yeah,
I'm doing that thing again, right?
yeah,
I'm doing that thing again. My addict brain, I'm doing that thing again. It's okay. Just don't pick up. So went on like a tear with that. And I managed to like get engaged in that time, right? And like stay sober somewhat through most of that. And it was a beautiful time. We had a beautiful experience. I proposed to the love of my life, and we were going to get married. And I was on top of the world, dude. I was controlling, hash marks, right? In quotation, sorry. I was controlling my Adderall and my Vyvanse use, which I wasn't. But I kept justifying it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the just the dirty, part of this whole thing is like it's the only disease that tells us we don't have a disease, right? And we're okay. So started doing that. I had to go to treatment again because I started drinking and I got kicked out of the house, right? I was living with my fiance at the time. She did the best thing and saved my life again. She saved my life so many times. And again, the only thing that worked was completely cutting me off and not enabling me,
Yeah.
right? And so I was suffering even more because I needed to hit a new bottom, right? You kind of have to hit a bottom to get well, right? And everyone's bottom is different,
Yeah,
right?
everyone.
Bottom is when you stop digging, I was
Yeah.
taught, right? So I hit a place again where emotionally I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't love, I hate myself. I'm going to bars. Don't even remember. I started getting into benzodiazepines. I don't remember getting to the bar. Luckily, I didn't drive and I was riding my bike a lot. That was like the only good thing that I did. But there was one time when I did drive and it like, I don't even remember taking them and I blacked out and I managed to like not do anything too bad, right? But it scared me to death, right? I remember calling my sister and, I love her to death, man. She's a doctor now. I
Wow.
remember calling her in a blackout and like I asked her, I was like, is it safe to drive on benzos? And she's like, what? What are you, and she started, but she didn't try to control me. She said the best thing ever to me that I needed to hear. She's like, let's go to a meeting tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God, I melted. I was like, man. So she came over, we spent the time together, we went to a meeting. It was a beautiful thing, right? And I'm so grateful for the support I have. I love her to death, right? She saved my life again. And so, long story short, I went to a treatment center in Utah this time, and it was a good experience, right? I did 30 days, but I was really focused on my wedding. I was focusing on just showing up, being the best husband, getting to my wedding, and not screwing it up, right? That was like the most important thing for me at that time. So I wasn't focused on my recovery. I have to put my recovery first, or everything else will
Yeah.
burn to the ground,
Yeah. Literally, bro.
right? So I managed to show up. We had a beautiful night together. I didn't drink that night, which was a miracle in itself, and I just had fun, right, with
I've seen all the
everyone.
pictures for the wedding.
Oh, it was amazing, man.
It's
It
really
was
beautiful.
amazing time. Like luckily, God willing, I was able to get through that and not pick up and go crazy and start using again. But again, there was this hole that I needed to fill, and I wasn't filling it properly inside, right? There was something missing. And so after that, we went on our honeymoon, and it was an amazing experience. Again, went to Italy. It was a beautiful experience.
And like, I'm just gonna pause real
Yeah,
quick and tell you something. Like, just for anyone out there who's watching, like, what's crazy, not crazy, but what really is like eye opening to me in your stories, like, man, like, it just goes to show, like, in my eyes, I look at you, I see this fucking amazing, outstanding guy. I see your wife. She's an amazing, outstanding woman. You guys have a beautiful marriage. You have a beautiful family. She has a beautiful family. You have all this support, this great wedding, and still there's something inside you that's just like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And it just goes to show. Because sometimes, bro, I remember I'd be confused. I'm like, what is missing? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, I feel like I have everything, but there's still something inside you that's just like, bro, I gotta go pick up some drugs.
yeah.
So like for anyone out there who's really like, to me, anyways, man, that's what hits me hard in your story, is that like, this goes to show this can happen to absolutely
Yeah.
anybody.
Doesn't
'Cause you have
discriminate.
everything,
Doesn't discriminate,
It does
right?
not discriminate.
And we have to deal with that like self-hatred thing, and or we won't get better,
Yeah,
right?
bro.
So I've done a lot of work on myself, and I managed to get through that treatment, and
So
but
after your wedding,
I was right back to it like within a week after. Something about going away and traveling and then coming back. I don't know what it is, but I get like this. The cravings are like unreal when I come back. I can't even control it.
really, right? And
It's
you're a
so
traveler, so
yeah. We travel everywhere, right? And so I managed to like get through the trip and not completely mess up and not do anything
is this for your
stupid.
honeymoon or
Yeah, any
okay?
trip that we go on. And then when I come back, it's like I just have this drive to like get messed up again and like get back into it.
Yeah,
And I don't care. I'm like, fuck it. And I'm not telling anyone. That's the important part here for me.
yeah,
If anyone gets anything out of this, it's like talking to somebody about what you're dealing with or going through. It helps so much,
yeah.
man. Like,
Bro, I've never been like I don't think ever in my life until I got sober. I don't ever remember being like telling someone like, man, I'm having a
oh,
fucking horrible day, and
never,
I just want to get high right now.
never.
Couldn't imagine saying that to
Yeah,
someone because they'd be like, are you fucking stupid? You know?
But most people don't react like that.
No,
right?
exactly. It's just in our own minds,
Yeah,
right?
we have the conversation in our head,
Yeah.
because we're mind readers, you know.
But like you say that to me, like I was thinking this, I was going through this, and you said you talked to nobody. I relate to that so much.
Yeah.
I can think of 0 times I ever said that to anybody in my life.
And when you don't talk about it, it's the best idea ever, right?
Yeah.
I have to out myself and blow my spot up.
Oh yeah.
Right? As Dave says, shout out Dave.
Yeah.
But I have to blow up my spot when I'm having these thoughts, because if I keep them inside, it's like fueling a fire, right? It just
Literally.
keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Literally.
Secrets keep us sick, just bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. No, it's a good idea. I'm going to do that. Yeah. And you don't bounce it off anyone,
Yeah.
right? It's like starting a business and not asking for like anyone's opinion. And you know nothing about business, right? And you get into it and you're like, oh no, I got this. I'm just going to use my perspective only, right? And you don't go and talk to like somebody that's successful,
Yeah.
right? It's ridiculous.
It helps so much when you talk, and like dude, 30 minutes ago I was having this idea, and it was just like a different way of making money, and no, it was not selling drugs. It was just this thing online, right? And I was like really thinking about it, and I was like, first thing I did was me and Anthony talked on the phone, like, hey bro, we'll talk about it more when you get here. And then I talked to my other friend.
You talked to like 3-4 people, right?
And then like I come to the senses that is a horrible idea, and I'm not gonna do it, right? But like it just goes to show sometimes you just gotta get out of your own head and talk to someone else.
I love it.
And it doesn't have to be a scientist or a doctor. Just talk to your buddy, call your parents, call your brother.
Hey, can I bounce something off you, right? Like what do you think about this? It has to be a complicated conversation, right? And then immediately like, you know what, maybe that is not a good idea for my life. Am I benefiting to my recovery, or am I taking away? As Jay says, am I depositing into my spiritual bank account, or am I withdrawing?
Yeah.
Is
That's
this
such a good saying.
I love it. Is this moving me closer to being a better person, or further away and being the person I was?
Yeah.
Right. And then, what kind of man do I want to be? I had a sponsor that always said that to me. What kind of man do you want to be? Ask yourself that. Yeah. And do my actions reflect that person? Right. So you're pretty close to the point now where you end up back in freedom, or? Yeah. Then I end up going back to, treatment in Canada. And it was probably the best experience I had, because I kept the friends. Whereas in the States, I didn't really hang out with them and keep in touch. We kept in touch, but now it's like we have a group chat, right? We're all close. Yeah. And that's another thing that benefits in recovery is like, if you find your people, stay close with them, do fun stuff with them. Recovery can be fun, right? It can be fun. Being sober, going to, you can go anywhere in the world if you're there for the right reason, right? I was taught that. If I'm spiritually fit, if I'm, going to, so let's say I have to go to a wedding and there's drinking everywhere. If I go to that wedding and try to, steal some vicarious pleasure out of other people drinking, I'm doomed. But if I go to the wedding, I'm going to support my friend. These are the mindsets, right? I'm going to support my friend. I'm going to, benefit to the conversation. Am I going to, I often ask myself, am I giving in this situation, or am I taking? Yeah. Right? Am I expecting to get something out of this wedding, or am I going to go and bring good, positive energy and talk with people? That helps me a lot, right? And then when I leave, I'm like, I had a good night. I had great conversations. I met new people. I have a new phone number that I can hang out with someone. And I showed up. And, the people that I was supporting were happy that I was there, because I didn't make a mess. I didn't flip a table. I didn't punch anyone, right? I didn't pass out drunk or fall asleep at the table, right? And so, I came out of that, and now I'm just listening, man. I didn't really want to come to a sober house. I had 7 years. My ego was like, I don't need this. I got this, right? And that's the most dangerous thing you can say in recovery is I got this. I don't know what's going to happen next, but if I don't pick up, I'll be okay, right? Again, if I just don't pick up and tell someone about my grand ideas and thoughts and what I'm dealing with, I'm going to be okay today, right? So long story short, that's pretty much the bulk of it. And I'm just grateful for all my support. I'm grateful for you, man. I love you. I'm grateful that we can talk openly and honestly. And I think there's this big stigma around men, sharing their emotions, especially, women I too as well, right? Yeah. But there's definitely, in my experience, it's always just suck it up, right? Don't cry, right? Don't feel this way, right? And so it's nice to kind of go against that and, just be honest and transparent.
100%, man.
We all struggle, man. Everyone has their struggles. Trauma is subjective, right? Trauma is, I was always taught that I didn't have to get beat as a child. I didn't, right? But you hear some people's stories and it's like, that's trauma. I don't have any trauma. No, you do have trauma.
Bro, I remember that, I mentioned I come from a great family and I wasn't beaten or nothing, but I'd be sitting in it when I was in treatment, man. Dude, I would hear some people's stories and I'd be like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
I didn't have any trauma at all.
I'm not like
some
that.
Some kids went through absolute hell,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
So I remember like someone explained that to me, right? So I was like, I had no trauma. I wasn't beaten as a kid, or I wasn't, sexually assaulted as a kid, or nothing like that. And then they'd be like, well, something happened, right? I remember my counselor said to me, man, he said, who? Like, I was just being Caleb, being a dick when I first got there. I said that in my last video. I was having a hard time. I was struggling when I first got in there, right? I wasn't doing drugs, and the only reason was because I was literally locked in a facility, right? But nothing else was changing. And like I mentioned, I was gonna get kicked out, and the counselor looked at me, and I'm not gonna say his name just for personal reasons, but this guy helped me change my life, and I'll never forget this guy for the rest of my life, man. And he looked at me, he's like, bro, who hurt you? He said, who hurt you, man?
That's powerful.
Like, seriously, like, who the hell hurt you? And like, he gave me a couple questions, like heavy questions, and we spoke twice a week. We had sessions, right? And I had like 4 or 5 days to answer these questions, and man, I wrote some stuff down. And like I said, I had no like complete extravagant situations when I was a kid that happened to me, like where police needed to get involved or anything. But like there was things that happened that like created certain behaviors,
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
And made me act the way I did, right? And like you look at that and the way like how things come about. Like you don't just wake up one day and become this arrogant, lying drug addict. Things happen that create
your environment.
Environment, right? And you don't have to come from a family of drug addicts and homelessness and these crazy tragedies, right? Like, because I didn't, you didn't, and look at where we ended up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, it's crazy. Like, trauma is a big thing.
Yeah, it's a good point.
My treatment center that I went to really worked on like trauma-based therapy.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. I think this is helpful to know too, for me, but for everyone. What did your parents do that helped you?
Helped me?
Yeah.
Like
how did they help you?
Like get help?
Get to where you are today. Yeah.
Well, yeah, sorry, I just didn't understand exactly what you're asking.
No.
Well, they tried the whole cutting off thing at first, and I was, my parents did not know what to do.
Yeah,
right? They had no idea.
There's no manual for this,
There's no manual for this, man. And like, yeah, it almost makes me like emotional thinking about it, man, because like to this day, I think I'm still early in recovery, and it's only been like 4 or 5 months, so my parents are still having a hard time getting over what I put them through it. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here thinking about that, but they didn't know what to do. They tried cutting me off. They tried the whole telling me what to do thing. And then I think as I surrendered, in a way, they kind of surrendered. And before my last month using, before I went to treatment, they were in contact with an interventionist, right? My whole family was, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles.
So again, professional help comes in.
Professional help, right? Because they did not know what to do, right? And for the last couple months, man, I had very little contact with them, and it didn't bother me at all because I was so high, and it's so sad to think about. But what they did to help me, man, was they did not give up on me because, I'm still young, and you think, well, you're always gonna be their son. But I was 23 years old. They had no legal reason to keep. They could have let me fly, but they didn't. They did. I'm sure they thought about it because I was putting them through so much. But man, one day, it was about 2 days before I went to treatment. I was going through some stuff. I was hanging out. I was with a girl that I should not have been with, and she had kids living at my house, right? And like, this girl was struggling with the same thing we struggle with, man. So, I don't look at her any different. It's a sad situation, but I shouldn't have been around her. And I went to my parents' house because some stuff was going on, and I just wanted to talk to them about it, right? So I went to their house, and they had asked me so many times why I use drugs, right? And I would always have a reason, like, I'm not addicted. I go to work every day. Blah, 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 blah. I always had some stupid ass excuse, right? But I remember, bro, I had no answer. My parents, my mom, I explained it to my mom, and my mom's, my mom's a better listener than my dad, right? And shout out to my dad, I love you, but like, my mom, she's always like, my mom and my dad are both my rock, but they got different, like, what I mean?
Different approaches.
Different approaches. So I remember I said to my mom, and I will not forget this, bro. Right on the couch, it was like probably 7 or 8 at night, maybe like 6 o'clock. And I explained to her, I'm like, Mom, like, I need drugs to just like feel normal. I said, like, this conversation we're having right now, it's because I'm high. Like, I can't do anything unless I'm nothing. I said, like, I wake up every day, and the first thing I think about is like, how am I gonna get money? And before I get the money, I'm lining it up. Like, everything I'm doing is centered around getting high. And it sounds crazy, but it is crazy. That's what I was doing. And I said, I can't stop. Like, I remember saying this to her, man.
Yeah.
And I said that to her, like, I cannot stop. I don't know what to do. And they said, like, would you get help? And I actually, it's funny because I didn't clearly remember this whole thing, but me and my mother just talked about this a couple weeks ago, and she said, you said that you would go get help. And I guess I said I'd go get help, man. And I was in tears, crying. And my dad brought me back to my house after this conversation. And I just remember, he's like, he's like, I love you, bro. Like, he didn't say that. Like, my dad doesn't call me bro. We don't say that. Sorry. He's like, I love you, buddy. And like, we're going to figure this out.
Nice.
And it was like, I had some type of hope. And then 2 days later, early in the morning, man, my brother and my little brother, who's like my big brother, he's way bigger than me, kicks my ass.
He's a good dude, yeah.
He's a good dude. He's my boy, man. Shout out you, Jaden. I love you so much, buddy. And they showed up to my house, and that girl was at my house, and they weren't a big fan of her.
Yeah.
She was a little bit older than me, and she was using drugs with me. So my parents weren't too fond of her, but my dad showed up and he said, "Hey, come outside." And to be honest with you, man, I have a great grandmother who's 93.
Wow.
Shout out my grandma Julie.
Wow.
I know you're not watching this, but I honest to God thought that they were gonna tell me like, "Hey, your grandma passed away."
Oh, wow.
That's what come to my head, and my grandma's still alive. Don't worry. But that's why I was like, "Hey, come in the garage. We gotta talk to you." And I was like, "Okay." And they said like, "Hey, we have been in contact with this lady, and we want to send you to a treatment center. Will you go?" And I really thought, I had like feelings for this girl I was with, right? And that was the one thing that was kind of holding me back. I'm like, well, can I go tomorrow? And they're like, no, like we literally have like 30 minutes. Like, pack your bags and we gotta go.
Wow.
And I was, oh man, I was crying so much. And the one thing I'm gonna mention to you, man, is one of the largest part of the reasons why I actually made it there, because like there was a part in my head, and my dad was like, he wasn't like, happen by the next day, you have to go. That wasn't what it was. Yeah. I honestly, I did have an option. I could have not went.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you had to make the choice to get in the car,
and
right?
My father and my mother had to pay a lot of money to send me to where I was, right? Yeah. And that was just like them being like, I just want my son not to die, right? So my dad was basically like, listen, dude, like if you want to go, like, and you're gonna do this, like we'll send you, but like, don't fuck around. So it wasn't like, like I said, it wasn't like hold me by the next thing I had to go. And I was like, can I think about it for a few minutes? No, like make a decision. My dad's like a game time decision.
Yeah.
Like,
let's go.
Boy.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do here? So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I went in the house and I started second guessing if I was gonna go or not. My brother and my dad had left, right? And I remember my brother said to me, bro, this is hard to like remember, man. He said to me in the garage, like my little brother's my best friend, man. And he said to me, dude, I just want my brother back. Yeah, like simple words like that, bro. Just you literally feel like Conor McGregor gave me a left hand, one of those like old like 2016 left hands from McGregor, bro. Man. Right to the chin, and I was like, wow. Whew. So I went in the house and I started second guessing if I wanted to go. I went back in the house and smoked a huge shoot. That's what I did.
Yeah, that's
got right high. Yeah. And that girl was crying and I was crying because I had to go for 3 months. That's a long time, bro. Yeah. And I went 12 hours from home.
Wow.
And like she said like you need to get help, and she was sick, probably almost. We were both very sick, man. And she's like, you need to go, like you're not doing good. And she was a bit older than I was. She was about 31, and I was like 23. And she's like, she said to me like, I'm never gonna change. Like this is who I am for the rest of my life. She said and I was just like, she's like, but you're young, you have a chance, Caleb. She's like, you have so much potential. And this is a sick drug addict woman saying this to me, and I will never forget that, man. I'm thankful for that, because that's a large part of the reason as to why I went, because I didn't want to go because I didn't want to leave her, and I had nothing, dude. She said, here, I didn't even have a phone because I sold my phone for drugs. Yeah. So she gave me a phone for the ride there, downloaded music on it. She wrote me. I was there for 90 days, and in like 20 minutes on little pieces of paper, she wrote 90 notes for each day.
Holy, you never told me that. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't like talking about it. But yeah, she did that, and that's a large part of the reason as to why I went. And my parents, so she was living at my house, and my parents were paying my rent. And she's, my parents, who really, man, they did the most understanding thing. They let her stay there for like an extra month. That was the last month. So it was like the middle of the month. They said, you could stay the last 2 weeks, but you have to get out after that. And they let her stay there, man. And just like, shout out to my parents, man, for like, you asked the question, how did they help me? They helped me in so many ways. They're still helping me today, and like, I think that, man, this, talking about your story and talking about this right now, like, we got to really, really like think how lucky we are to have our family, and I know my parents are watching this right now. And yeah, thank you guys so much. And like, even though I say this lots, like, I don't think you understand how thankful I am because
Yeah.
like I'm sitting, you know, in my opinion, the best city in the country. You know, with people I've never met before who are now my family. Like this guy's my best friend. I'm following my dreams right now. I wake up every day, not with the raging urge to use drugs anymore. I'm like my life has changed drastically in 5 months to the point where it's almost scary.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh boy, I don't want this to change, and
Yeah.
that's why I work so hard.
Yeah, yeah,
bro.
man.
But like,
Yeah.
I just want you to like truly grasp how thankful I am for you guys, and again, everyone else who messaged me about the video, man. Like, it's just crazy to show. Like that little town, man, has got a piece of my heart, bro.
Yeah. People care. People are rooting
People
for you,
care,
right?
man.
People
And
care.
you think all these people like despise you, bro? Because
Yeah.
I would go, like the people that, like I said, I wasn't even super close with. Like I'd go to the bar and I'd leave the bar that night. Never there'd be 500 people who were mad at me. We used to have parties lots in the bush, like camp parties. I'd go to those. It's supposed to be like two day weekend parties. On we go Friday and we're supposed to stay till Sunday. On Saturday morning, I'd wake up. Everybody was pissed off at me. I'd have to leave, and all those people messaged. A lot of those people messaged me. Were like, "Dude, I'm so happy to see you doing good."
Wow.
So, anyways, that's all I gotta say, bro.
Amazing, man. That was awesome. Thank you. I think, and let's end with this. But yeah, it's like shout out to the support systems, right? I'm
That's
grateful
what
as well. Thank you for
First,
sharing
that's
that.
over here.
Something I heard that, might help somebody that's struggling with an addict, a loved one who's in an addiction or alcoholism is like the 3 C's, right? So if I have a loved one in my life that's addicted to drugs and alcohol, I can't control it. I didn't cause it and I can't cure it,
Yeah.
right? It's almost like this like beautiful
Wow.
letting go thing.
Wow.
I have to let go and they have to find their way, their own path. You can't force anyone to do anything, right?
Yeah.
But you can do little things, get professional help, like
Yeah.
we talked about. And then what worked for me is completely cutting me off and stopping enabling me by, giving me a place to stay. And
Yeah.
because I hit a bottom that I don't want to ever hit again, right?
Yeah.
I don't ever want to go back to that dark place, man. It was dark, right? I was alone, I thought, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm not alone.
You were alone, bro.
Yeah.
You were alone.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah. So, let's end with that, man. Great job. Love you, buddy.
Yeah, I love you, man. And I'm thankful for my family, bro. I'm thankful for you.
Thankful for you too, bro.
All right, bro.